Hey everyone, it's dragonrider, and it's time for some Shaman theory crafting for Festival of Legends. Pretty excited, honestly, for Shaman and some Overload stuff. This is my Theorycraft deck. I am pretty excited for some of the Overload. There's also some pretty decent Overload coming into the core set, and one card that I really think is awesome for the new set with Overload is the Flow Rider, where if you're overloaded, you get to discover a spell from your deck. So I think that's super neat. I think it's a really, really cool card. And of course, you gotta have the new card, Jive Insect. This is sweet. I love this card. Now, for my Overload deck here, this Jive Insect and the Inza, which is also the new legendary that kind of works with Overload, this is the top end of my deck. It only goes up to 5 mana, and everything is pretty cheap. Now, the reason, well, there's a couple of reasons I did this. One reason is because I think with being overloaded, you'll want to have some cheaper stuff so that you can still kind of play things every turn. But also, I kind of wanted to go for a bit of like spell damage, like direct damage to face. I mean, building up and having like a 5, potential like 5, damage lightning bolt to your opponent's face for 1 mana seems really sweet. And then also Overdraft. Overdraft is really cool for being able to deal damage to your opponent's face, unlock all those crystals, and then play more things. So Overdraft as well can be kind of like a potential finisher to help you get some of those spells. I'm not totally sure if this deck is going to really have enough of like damage and kind of a win condition to actually close out games. So because of that, I do also really like the Jive Insect, and I kind of want to just straight up run Ragnaros in the deck. But since I wanted to keep the curve low, I decided not to put the Ragnaros itself in here, but I might in the end, just to have like more things that can target face potentially. But being able to create one with Jive Insect is really cool. I kind of like the Altered Chord, giving you some lifesteal, being able to clear up a minion. With the amount of overload in here, it's going to be pretty easy to get through this. Plus, I added Life Drinkers for a little bit more damage to the hero and healing as well, kind of try to keep you alive. School Teachers, just to, create some more things, discover something. I do kind of like the Jazz Base here. It's a new weapon, going to be able to discount one of your spells. But even just getting, with like this deck, getting some value of being able to discount a spell by like 3 mana, 3 mana, I think is honestly pretty good. Being able to play like a Jive Insect for 2 instead of 5 is going to be amazing. There is quite a bit of overload, and as I said, I wanted to put some spell damage, so I have the Novice Zappers, the Blood Mage Thalnos, and the Silver Moon Arcanists. Now, these, you can't target your spell's face, so you wouldn't be able to like play this and then send lightning bolts at your opponent's face. But I think there's still room for this card, like we've seen with Demon Hunter, with things like the Zap, which is going to target only a minion, or the Lightning Storms, which are also only going to be minions. So kind of a very similar effect. We don't really have anything that can discount quite like the Demon Hunter did, but we'll see. Maybe that's still fine. And then I wanted to put Photographer Fizzle in here as well, because I really like this, and I think, again, with kind of that damage and adding some of the stuff in, if you maybe want some more spells, or potentially getting an extra copy of Jive Insect, I think Fizzle could be really cool for that. So wanted to include him and see how it went. But I think some of this stuff is going to just create a bit of enough damage, and don't necessarily need a ton of things on the board. And the minions that I have, Novice Zapper, the one Thalnos, the Fizzle itself, the Arcanist, Life Drinkers, School Teacher, and I guess the Nagalings would go with that. And Command of Neptulon, Inza, and then Jive Insect, creating a Ragnaros from something else. There's a decent-ish amount of minions, I could include the spell that gives all of your minions the bioluminescence, all of the minions spell damage, but it felt a little costly to be able to do that, and I wasn't sure how often I'll be able to stick minions. And the other one that I also might include is the Scalding Geyser. I think the Scalding Geyser is also a fantastic card. You can send that face, it's going to work with the spell damage, and you'll get to dredge, so it adds a little bit more. I'm just not exactly sure what I want to take out of the deck to put that in. It might be maybe I take out one Arcanist, something like that. Maybe we'll see how some of these other cards feel, and then I could put that in. But I think Scalding Geyser will probably make it into the deck. And then switching over to our community submitted deck. This deck was submitted by Siimba. Siimba is awesome. He's amazing. Definitely. He has a couple of channels, one for Hearthstone and one for some other things. He does a ton of reacting to music videos and different stuff. So I'll link those below if you want to check them out. But this is a really neat Shaman list here. He did also go for some overload stuff, but he kind of went in a different direction than I did. He really leaned into more of the top end stuff. He still has the overdrafts, ancestral knowledge, the flow riders, feral spirit, jazz bass, all of that, right? The altered chords that I had in mind, command of Neptulon, the Inza, the Jive Insect, those are all the same, which I think also going into our 4-set meta, pretty reasonable. There's a little bit less options for cards in standard, but look at this curve. These are some big minions. Look at this. 7 things that cost 7 or more. All right, so let's look at what he's doing here. I also like with this kind of slower deck, the Sir Finley Sea Guide in here to be able to, if you have a really clunky hand, you just play Finley, switch everything, and not worry about it. That seems pretty great. These Doomsayers, just to help keep you alive, put this on the board, keep your opponent from having a board, ideally, seems good. I like the one inclusion of the instrument tech to help you pull the jazz bass. That seems pretty great. I think instrument tech is going to be a really cool inclusion. And then also 1 copy of Cover Artist. Now, I think in this list, there's some pretty decent stuff to actually copy that you don't really care if it's a 3/3 or not, because of death rattle effects or just whatever they have. I mean, honestly, even creating a 3/3 copy of a Doomsayer might be enough to make your opponent have to trade into it and kill off a minion. Or if they don't have a minion, maybe you just really solidify that board. It would be 6 to do that. You'd have essentially 2 Doomsayers, but that could be the difference between the Doomsayer effect actually triggering or not. Beyond the 5 cost, also the Bone Lord Frost Whisper. This one's super cool. Being able to, have that die in 3 turns effect, but making the first card each turn cost 0, could be really spicy with some of this other stuff. These other heavy minions are the Blightblood Berserker that's got Taunt and Lifesteal and Reborn, and then Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Now, it is enemy, so it can hit face. It is the Death Rattle, though, and it's only hitting 1 thing, but it still gives you a Lifesteal effect, and that's this. Also would be another fantastic target for that Cover Artist. Then the Overlord Drakuru with the Rush and Wind Fury, and after it attacks and kills a minion, it brings it up on your side. That seems sweet. Then the Sire Denathrius. So I love this combination of being able to turn something into a Ragnaros, and then you have all these other things, and then there's some other things to kind of make it work with 1 copy of Criminal Lineup. There is only 1 in here. Which I respect. I think having 2 of these might be a little over the top, and if your opponent kind of knows that's what you're doing, you might not want to be able to do that. Also has Overload, so it can kind of work with some of this other stuff. This is kind of a mix between Overload and a big Shaman, so really cool. And then also includes these copies of From the Other Side. Now, the thing that I like about this, and why I think it's fine to have the 2 in here, is it summons a copy of the minions from your hand. Then they attack, and then they die. So the Death Rattle things, like the Berserker, you're going to get that effect. The healing from the Berserker, the Denathrius, those you'll get the healing when they attack. But because from the other side is copy, you still have those minions in your hand. So it's not just pulling them out and then they die and then no more minions for you. And, you know, if you can maybe like get the criminal lineup after you've played Jive Insect, maybe create multiple Ragnaroses on board, right? That seems great. Being able to transform Cover Artist into a 3/3 Ragnaros also seems fantastic. And then the last one we got to talk about here is the ETC. And so for the ETC band, the 3 cards that Siimba is including is Hex, Bloodlust, and Starfish. Now, I like this as well. I mean, every video that I've talked about these, like, it's so interesting to see the different kind of ideas that people have for ETC. Now, having the Hex in there and Starfish, I think especially, are 2 that are more a little bit like tech cards, like the Starfish to silence stuff, Hex to be able to transform like an enemy thing that you can't really deal with, or just kind of stall a little bit longer if you do have that ETC kind of early and you're looking for your bigger stuff. And the Bloodlust can potentially just be a win condition if with this like big shaman you're able to get onto the board and then you can ETC and Bloodlust. I will say one thing that I really like about this is all of these are cheap enough where you can play the ETC and the card you discover from ETC in the same turn with all 3 of these options. So with this deck that's already trying to go like later game and stall a bit till then I mean, having cards in your ETC band that you can play the same turn seems really good. So I think this is a really cool list. I definitely have heard a lot of people talking about the criminal lineup after you have like a Ragnaros on board. But I'm not sure if I have heard of people talking about like creating kind of a big shaman and using from the other side. It hasn't been used yet, but maybe there's some potential now. Maybe there is. The use of the Bone Lord to try to get your big things for free seems really spicy. I like this a lot. I know I said I think these are sweet, and of course one is my own build, but what do you think of these? Let me know down below. Thank you so much everybody who has been supporting the channel, and I hope that you have been enjoying these. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out this one next, where I went over some rogue decks, and combo, is it gonna be a thing? I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see, but go ahead and check that one out next, and I'll see you in the next one.